Well, hello everyone. I decided to show you something different. And everybody loves jewelry, at least us ladies do, right? And I have in front of me a lot of different things. But the main things that I'm going to show you how to do is how to do a very simple, elegant little dangle earring, pierced earring. You can use it for non-pierced. You just have to get the correct earring back. So I've got a what's called a French closure earring back, where the little connector part is here on the front. Has a little decorative kind of spot there. We're going to dangles from the front. And these I'm sure everyone's familiar with. It's called the ball uh, earring wire. Has a little ball on the bottom. And I'm going to be using this, and I don't even know if you can see the sparkle in this, but it's called blue sandstone. And if you look really close, you can see the little blue sparkles in it. I don't know if the camera's going to be able to pick those up. Maybe. But that's what I'm using. This is actually a 8mm size, and then 6mm is the smaller size. You can see the difference in the two. Big difference between that one and that one. Maybe it's easier to see this way. You can see the difference. There's the 8 that's in the way, and then that's the 6. So we're doing 6mm because I find that 6mm or a combination of 6 and 4, like the 6 and then one that's a little bit smaller, makes really beautiful, dainty, and elegant kind of bracelets. So that's what I'm going to be using. Now the main tools that you'll need to make your bracelet are some tiger wire, fire wire, whatever they call it these days, and it's 7-strand. I use the 7-strand instead of the higher strand ones because it's more pliable, and being in an area where you're going to be moving your arm around, you don't want this to be so dense that it can, breaks on you. You want to be able to move with your movements. You need that about for an average wrist size for a bracelet is 6 to 7 inches. So I make mine 6.5 to 7. Because if it's a little loose, that's okay, because I can show you how to do a safety chain so that in case it comes undone, you won't lose it. And so that's 7-strand. The other things that you use for the drop earrings, this is called a head pin. It looks like a nail. It looks like a sewing pin, but it's 1.5 inches long, so it's longer. And on one end it's flat. So when you put your beads on it, they don't fall off. That catches them, and then you do a loop in the top, and we'll show you how to do that. Or you can use the ones that already have the loop already in there. But when I use these, I usually am going to use it because I'm going to dangle one more thing on the end. And I'm not going to do that with these this time. So we're going to use the head pin. Then for the bracelet, I'm going to install a safety chain. This is just a 2-inch chain of basically it's jump rings, and then little tiny silver jump rings. These are the small ones. These are like the 4mm, and then there is a lobster clasp that you're all familiar with. It's so small I can't even show you, but that's the lobster claw. Now that's going to be used with the safety chain. I'm going to show you how to make your own clasp for the end of this. I call it an S clasp. And then I'm using magnetic beads. I've found that magnetic beads are really good, believe it or not, for some people, not everyone, it's not scientifically proven for everyone, for blood circulation. And I have a tendency to have edema in my legs, and if you don't know what that means, it means swelling of the legs. Like if you're on your feet all day long and you get home and your ankles are all swelled up and stuff like that, that's edema. That's just fluid that collects in the legs from being on your feet. So I wear a magnetic anklet to bed every night, and it does help. Believe it or not, it really does help. So I have my blue sandstone beads. I also have these little, you can get these come in like packages like of 100 or more. And it's called a little spacer bead. I don't know if you can see how tiny these things are. But it has little rhinestones in the end, so it gives a sparkle to the bracelet. And you'll see that when we finish that up. And the other thing is there's a special kind of beading needle that I like to use. There are beading needles and then there are beading needles. This is a collapsible bead needle. It has an eye in it that's really big, and as you put it through the bead, it collapses. So even when you have elastic on this, if you're making an elastic type bracelet, it'll stay in there. It snaps down on it. And if you could feel this, it feels like a twisted cable or twisted wire. And that's why it works so well. It stays nice and stiff. It doesn't bend all over the place and you have this flimsy thing going on. So that is what I'm going to use to put my wire in. I use two different kinds of pliers. It's kind of like a needle nose, but it's a toothed one. It's not smooth. And then I have another one that's toothed as well, and it's curved. It has this little curvature that comes in really handy. So those are my two favorite ones to use, and you tend to use both hands a lot while you're working on things. These are the wire cutters. They're just your basic little wire cutter. These are, it calls them it goes model shears. I don't know about shears, but they definitely are clippers. And then of course this is your crimper. It's just a hand crimper. It will crimp four different sizes of crimp beads. And the crimp beads, and I know you're not going to be able to see these are so teeny tiny. This is what stops your beads from falling off. And that's the very first thing you do. When you get started, you take a jump ring that is not opened. Let's make sure this one's closed. And this one is not closed. So I'm going to close it up. It's got a little bit of a gap. So I'm just going to squash it shut. Come on, baby, get in there. So you just basically squeeze it to where the two pieces meet. Now I'm going to take my tiger wire and I'm going to put it through that ring. And I have this foam pad here to make sure nothing goes sliding off the table. So I'm going to put the tail end of the wire on here. I've got my jump ring on there. Then I'm going to take my crimp bead, put it in there. Did I do that right? Let me think. I'm sorry. Crimp bead goes on first. I just remember, because the crimp bead has to be below the bead, not on top of it. So the crimp bead goes on first. Then the jump ring. I need brighter light in here, I think. And then you take the end of your wire and you're going to fish it down through that crimp bead again. And this, if I can get this to show you what this is supposed to look like. I have to hold the end here. Try to show you. As you can see, I've got the jump ring, the wire goes back through the crimp bead, and then there's the tail of the wire sticking out. So now you want to tighten that up. So you're going to slide that crimp bead all the way up to your jump ring. So now it's literally right next to it, right below it, and that's when you crimp it. So to crimp it, you hold the two ends of the wire, keep it close to the bottom of that jump ring, and then you just squeeze. And it forces that crimp bead to seal it so that it's not going to go anywhere. The wire doesn't slide anymore, and now you've got a stop on the end. See, it's not going anywhere. Now what I do like to do is I would like to trim this up to about 1/2 inch from that crimp bead. As you can see, it's just a little piece there. So as you put the beads on, they're going to go over both those ends, and as you go forward, you'll have just the one wire in the middle of it all. So the hardest part about making a bracelet or necklace or anything is figuring out what design you want to make. So my suggestion is take out some colors that you like and put them in different designs. Like I started out with using these beautiful clear crystals on it, and I said, nope, they're too gaudy, they're too big. So I ended up with these barrel sized or shaped magnetic beads. They're literally shaped like a little barrel. I don't know if you can see those. They're shaped like a little barrel. And then I had the blue sandstone beads. And then I had these, I wanted a lot of sparkle. So I got the little spacer rondelles with the clear crystals in them. And I just did a pattern of every other one was a spacer bead or this little crystal looking thing. Now the thing with your bracelets is you want to make sure that when you lay it out, and like for me, I've got this as a pendant part to it. It has to be exactly in the middle. So on this bead board here, it's got numbers on it. Just like this is another bracelet board you can use, where it's actually got, you know, the hoop tape, and you know that your pendant, if you're going to use one, it goes right down here at the 0. So since this is 7 inches long, I need to have this at 3.5. So it can't be right at 0 because it's 3 on one side, 4 on the other. So it's going to be a 1/2 inch back. So I've got 3.5 and 3.5, and this just kind of hangs in the middle because it has this little bezel thing. I don't know if y'all can see this tiny stuff. But I'm trying to get it to come around. Doesn't want to come up. There it goes. And so it has this little tiny, can you see that? Guys see that? It's not. Okay, it's right here. It's this little thing hanging down. And that's where the wire goes through. So you have to remember when you get to that point to stop, put your pendant on, the heart, and then put the rest of it on. Now, because this tiger wire is nice and stiff, it doesn't take much effort to get it to go through these. The tricky part is sometimes the magnets want to do what they want to do. And you gotta have to force them to do what you want to do. So what I do is I do it in sections. Put the first section on. Now what I was trying to say before I got myself a little off course was that whatever you have on the end, I have a spacer on the end here, little spacer, right? On the opposite end that comes around and meets this, you don't want the same thing. You want either a magnetic bead or ideally one of these blue sandstone beads, which is, I made the pattern perfectly out that way so the pattern continues around no matter what, whether there's a clasp in the way or not. So you'll see what I mean when we get to the end of it. So I'm going to try to it was tricky putting the magnets in this one because they kept wanting to connect to each other when I wasn't ready for them. And so I got smart, and since the magnets are attracted to the spacer rondelles because they have metal in them, I would put a rondelle spacer on either side of the magnet, then put it on my design, and it worked out much better that way. I didn't have to fight with it as much. Just like now, I'm actually putting the wire through 3 beads at one time without a problem. It just goes right on there. Just when you get to the blue ones that aren't magnetic, that it's a little testy. Now, if I don't get to the earrings today, I will definitely do those in the next video. Because this is a little bit time consuming because I don't want to lose any beads on the floor. Although it'll be easy to find. I just take a magnet for most of them. There's that one. And another one, another blue sandstone. These are some of my favorite stones to work with. Just because they have just a little bit of that deep sparkle. You don't really see it until you're looking for it. I'm trying to do this while it's sitting here, but I can't remember if I laid them on here exactly the way they need to go. See, I just lost the blue one because the magnets decided they want to do their own thing. That's okay. And I chose the barrel ones because they fit in these spacer rondelles are indented, and the magnet ones fit in there so well because they kind of fit snug into that little cup. Whoop, don't. And you see, I knew that. Oh, that little touch of arthritis in this one hand really gets me every time. I dropped something. So, there you are. Right there. And there's that. And the magnet. I was trying to do them 3 at a time. But then they started deciding they wanted to connect with everything else on the board. Silly things. Okay. Now I know I've got to put it right there. So I'm going to move those over. Because I know that's where the pendant part goes in. Like that. Yeah, most of them I had lined up. So you just stick it on there. Put that one. And the magnet one. It's nice how snugly fit in there. Like that. Okay, so now I need to put my heart on. And all I want to do is put it through, because it already has the bezel on there, is fish the wire through it. And then put the rest of the beads on. Get in there, come on. There's that one. Every once in a while you'll find a bead that wasn't quite drilled right, so sometimes you have to get your little tool out and fix that error. Okay, come here then. You don't want to do it? Come here. So I've had some rondelles that they didn't quite punch the hole out in the center, and I had to fix those. Kind of like this one. You don't have a hole in there, do you? Yeah, yep, that's what the problem was. I had a feeling. And that one went through fine. So now, as you can see, it's in the middle of the design. The design hasn't been altered at all. They're still in their same pattern. My daughter used to have to come home and do things in patterns, and she said, I hate doing things in patterns. I said, why? She says, 'cause. Funny how kids just say, because. She didn't understand the purpose in it, I guess. Which, I can understand. This is just so that it's aesthetically eye-pleasing. There's some people who will put this on a beading needle and, actually shove it all the way down the needle kind of thing. I'm showing you how to do it without the needle. But if I wanted to use my beading needle, I would put the wire in it. The trick is not to let the wire slip out of it while you put them on here. And some people just like to put them all on at once, like this. Go that one. And it's not going to cooperate, is it? No, it's not going to. There's that one. Instead of going ahead and letting these slide down, just keep adding them on till they get to that end. I pretty much prefer to do it the other way, just kind of shove the wire in there. So I don't have to mess with the needle, because now it has to go over 2 widths of wire, see? And to do that, and I'm like, yeah, I know it's collapsible and all, but I really don't care for trying to shove it over 2 widths of wire. So I will typically take that needle out. because that's the only thing about using wire with wire. Now, it does great with elastic because the elastic's more pliable. But wire on wire, not so much. It needs to let go. Lenny Bun, let go of my wire. Thank you. I don't want to drop these. And I'm going to drop them. I knew it. There it goes. Which one did I drop? Let's see. This guy. Yeah, he was next in line. And we're going to do like that. And get it through the hole. Come on. Now that I've got them all in my hands, I can't see. There we go. Tap one. And another one that's already stuck together. It's nice when they all stick together. Makes it easier. Like that. We're almost at the end. Put that one in there. And this one. And I didn't think about safety chains till the other day. And they're a good idea to do. It's just kind of like extra peace of mind that if for some reason that lobster clasp takes a toss and undoes itself, that you've got a backup plan going on there. So, and it's one of those things that you can take it off if you don't want it on there. You decide you don't like the extra chain hanging down, but it's only about 2 inches, 1 3/4 to 2 inches long. But it's enough to stop you from losing your jewelry. Fancy jewelry, you know, higher scale jewelry will have a safety chain on it. If it doesn't, I'd be concerned. Okay, so now we have our 7 inches and the jump ring, or yeah, this is on this end. This is the one that it's going to hook into. Okay, this is where the lobster claw hooks into, and then this is the opposite end. And see how it sparkles? It just sparkles. That's a hematite heart there, by the way, in case you were wondering what that was. And now, so we need to put the lobster claw clasp on this if we wanted to. Well, and you don't have to, because I want to show you how to make a clasp. Did I bring my wire in here? Guess I didn't. I thought I did. I guess I didn't. Let me see. I've got a box of different findings. That's what they call the little pieces you use. Let's see if there's any wire in. I don't believe there is. So let me get a piece of the silver wire and we'll show you how to make an S clasp. Okay, so the wire you use to make the S clasp, is 18 gauge. And the thing with wires is the higher the number, the thinner the wires. So you want this to be a little bit on the sturdier side. So I use usually 18 or even 16 inch or 16 gauge. So you take, I leave it on the spool to start off with. And I take the end and about a 1/4 inch, bend it down a 1/4 inch, and then squash that thing. Squash it down. Okay. Now for a bracelet, you don't want a big S clasp, you want a small one. So what I do to judge how big it needs to be is I take the long nose pliers, and right next to the base, I have the wire right next to the base, and I'm going to wrap it around that part of the plier to make it look like this. Can you all see that? See it there? There it goes. Okay, so that's turning it that direction. Now I'm going to cut off where that ended. It's about an inch, and I'm going to cut that off at that spot. So now I have this piece, okay? And I'm going to take that same round nose pliers. Instead of wrapping it around the outside, I'm going to wrap it from the inside out. You'll see what I mean here in a minute. Okay, you see now this is shaped like...
The carburetor did not have the light.
It's shaped like an S. Okay, so then what you want to do with this part here is you want to make it into a circle. So what I usually do is I go back into it and I make this little tight circle.
And it worked.
And if I can get it to be more rounded.
Now I just need to get a new blade for it. See you tomorrow sometime.
I'm blowing off fireworks already. It's not even the 4th. So now you've got, I'm going to show the purpose in that. Because you want this to be flat. You can take a jewelry hammer, I have one, and flatten this out. But I'm going to leave it round. So you have this little loop here, and you have, this is just kind of decorative end on it. Also how it serves a purpose of keeping it shut. So what you need to do is just like we did on the other end, take a jump ring, not jump ring, excuse me, a crimp bead, put the wire through the crimp bead on the opposite end from the one that you've already done. You're going to put another jump ring on, just like you're going to do exactly the same thing you did on the other side, with one little change in a minute here. Okay. So now I'm going to take, now see how long this wire is? I'm going to have to trim that down, obviously. So make sure that the jump ring is here, and this is the crimp bead here. And you're going to pull it through. As you pull it, you want to tighten it up. So you're kind of like shimmying it down there to the other end. Okay? Because you want it to be nice and snug up to that last bead. Okay? And to ensure that it is tightened up all the way, you want to go through about 3 beads. Take that wire and again go through 3 of those last 3 beads. The same hole you came out of. Get that out of my way. I usually have another lamp that I use when I'm doing this so I can, because when it's this little, there it goes. So you just shove it through there until it comes out the other end. About 3 beads worth. Come on. Come on. There it goes. You gonna come out? Where are you coming out? I know it's in there because it went right in. I'm gonna get it to come out the other end. I'm holding onto the crimp bead because I don't want it to like. Okay, I know there's the end of this wire somewhere poking out the other side. I just got to get it to poke out. I don't want it to be like way in there. Alright, where are you, buddy? I found it. I gotta pull it through. Gotta loosen up a little bit. Pull it through. Come here. Because there's two strands. I gotta just figure out which one's the new one and which one's what was in there to begin with. And where's the end? I know the end's in here somewhere. Not there. It's not there. Gosh, this thing went way... There it is. It went way down in there. So you pull that end through those beads, and what it does is it cinches it up so it's nice and snug. Okay. So, where are you? There you are. There we go. So this is only supposed to be a few beads into it, but it's a lot further down, but that's okay. Because you want it to... See, these magnets are connecting everything on the floor here, on the table. Another reason. There we go. So then you can snip that off where, you know, you had it pulled through. Okay. Like that. And you take your crimp bead, or crimpers, and crimp the crimp bead. That's on that other end.
Yeah, the carburetor works flawlessly, but you gotta modify the damn thing.
And now that's crimped. I'm going to close this. Well, I don't want to close the jump ring yet. So this jump ring that's here gets hooked to this. So I need to open it up just a little bit. Sometimes I can do this with my fingers, other times I got to use 2 pairs of pliers.
Oh, that ring's terrific, Susan.
You're welcome.
Susan,
Yeah,
that ring is terrific.
I'm glad to hear it. So I just twist it open a little bit. Scoop this guy on here. There it goes. And then close it back up. Like that. Give it a good squeeze to make sure the ends meet one another. So now I've got my S hook, and on the other side I have the jump ring and that little loop.
You will need a Dremel tool with a carbide cutting disc in order
Will
to cut
fit in there.
the
It should fit in here nice and
next
snug,
to little hole
and it does.
in the throttle link.
So what's nice about this kind of clasp is it's easier to put on and off. Now, if for some crazy reason this thing does slip out of there, you want a safety chain. Safety chain is fairly easily. You got jump ring. Actually, need 2 jump rings. One for the lobster claw and one to attach it to the bracelet. So, or you can take the last chain, last link in this, and use it instead. So let's see if that one's open. Da-da-da. There it is. Just got to find the spot where it meets. And all I'm going to do is twist it open. Just a tiny bit. Put it on the end away from the S part in its same jump ring. Twist it back shut. Come on, baby. Where you at? See, make sure it's in there. There it goes. So now you have the chain hanging this way. And you can open up that last link on here. Instead of using a jump ring, you can just use the links that are already on it. Because they're basically jump rings anyway.
The only thing I didn't like about this carburetor is that the
Twist it open.
linkage,
And twisted it open.
you'll have
Place
to
that
modify it because the little hole is necessary.
little hole there at the end of the lobster clasp.
S
And
print and
twist them back
line
the opposite direction that you untwisted them. So they're lined back up.
So I had
Make
to
sure they're
modify
good
a
and level.
and a cutting disc, which worked.
And squash them real good. And then all you do is with the lobster claw on the safety chain is you attach it at the opposite side where that little jump
What do
ring
you
is.
call this drink?
Pineapple pleasure.
Pineapple what?
Pleasure.
Pineapple Mai Tai?
No, pleasure. P-L. Yeah. And the great thing about this too is with the magnets, it attaches. It holds on to the safety chain, so you can't lose it. So that's the end product with the magnetic beads. I did put the safety chain on there. When you wear it, see if I can get this on my hand without undoing it. Sometimes you can do that. That means they're just the right size. Let's see. Da, da, da. And there you are. Isn't it the cutest little thing? Now the earrings for this is super simple. You're going to take, it's called the head pin, where it's flat on one end, looks like a nail. And then you put your pieces on here that you want in the order of the design. I did the rondelle, and then the blue sandstone. Fingers are numb. And then one more of those little rondelles goes on there. Then another blue sandstone. You want to make sure that you have at least a ½ inch at the top. These are just real basic little dangles. There's nothing fancy, but they match the bracelet. And then I can make a necklace tail, which I probably will anyway. So it's just going to have these little dangly things. Now to do, attach them to the earring wires. Okay. You want to keep these snug. So I always place them in my fingers like this, from here to the bottom. And then the top part, you want to bend it down at a 90-degree plus angle. It's almost I guess 110, but so you want to bend it down this way. You see how it kind of goes like this? Then you're going to take your wire cutters, and you're going to cut it at about a 1/4 inch. You're going to cut it a 1/4 inch from that bend. Put that from a 1/4 inch from the bend. And then you take, and you're not going to close it all the way at this point. You're going to take the rounded nut pliers.
If I could give this 0 stars,
Then you're going to pinch it at the very end of the wire, and you're going to twist it around to make your loop.
carburetor
So you go like this, and now
choke lever does not move smoothly. Even
it's not a
after I
completely
release
closed
it
loop because you need to put it on the earring. So you slip the earring wire on there,
It would not operate properly
and then you go back,
after installing it. So I
and you want to
took it
make
out
sure that
before
you
the
put that
one.
tip that you're bending into it down into the bead below. So there's that one. I'll do the other one while I'm at it. Why not? These guys. There's no magnet in the earrings, but that's because they would have been too long. That dainty is better. I mean, what do they call it? Less is more. So we'll put this one in like that, like this, like this. And one more. it ends up looking like that. Do your 90 plus degree angle like this. Cut all of what's on the edge there except for a 1/4 inch. And your rounded pliers, I mean they're round all the way around, and you're going to grab the end by the end. You're going to turn it to us so it's kind of like almost a circle, and slip on the ball earring wire. Like that. Take those rounded needles again, or pliers again. Put the end right down inside. Now, you have a couple of beautiful little earrings to match your bracelet. Simple, easy. Half the battle is laying out the design. And if you like the video and you'd like to see some more stuff, you want to see some anklets, how I use magnets and other things, let me know in the comments, and please by all means share this video, give me a thumbs up, and we can create some beautiful jewelry together. God bless.